Hello, Internet. This is George. You may remember him from such features as head gasket and transmission swap. Now we've got engine swap. George, for some of you who don't know, is a 1996 Buick Century special wagon. It's special, all right. He is totally special. Special ed. I figured I'd do this sort of walk around and whatnot because I haven't done one for this car yet. So the particulars are, this car came with 3.1 liter Chevy V6. And 5 days after I bought it, the thermostat stuck closed, blew the upper radiator hose, leaked out all the water, and popped both head gaskets. So I rebuilt the top end, drove it for another 40,000 miles without issue, until I ran it out of oil last February. There's no fucking bonehead who doesn't know how to keep up on my oil level. Had a front main seal leak. So now we've got this thing in here. Don't let the looks deceive you. I mean, even though it's got this fancy pants GM Goodwrench new 3.1 liter sticker on the valve cover there, and the upper intake manifold even says 3100 SFI on it. Liar. Lying liar. This is, in fact, not a 3.1 liter. It is, in fact, a 3.5 liter V6. In particular, the LX9 V6 from a 2005 Chevrolet Malibu. As you can see, it fits just the same as the stock engine did in the engine bay. I had to make no physical modifications to the engine bay whatsoever in order to fit this engine in. It is the same physical size. It has provisions for the engine mount, which is down there on the passenger side of the subframe. I have a dog bone, bolts into the stock place. And about the only difference I had to do was right here at the throttle body. As you can see, I still have the stock intake hose into Grand Am mass airflow sensor. We'll be getting to that, the Legos. The only thing you might notice that's out of place is this right here. This is a 3-inch to 3 1/4-inch silicone coupler. And I wanted to keep the rice stuff to a minimum. And that's about the only thing you can see in here that's anything that might be anything different. It's attached to the stock transmission, and the stock transmission seems to be holding up okay. This car is based on a design from 1979, the Chevrolet Citation. So, you know, it's got good old stuff like a column shifter and, you know, a bench seat and a non-fancy pants stereo, stuff like that. But it is pretty well equipped. It comes with power windows and locks and an airbag. Used to have horn buttons, but they broke a long time ago. The big thing about having a station wagon, though, is back here. We have a rarity. Rear-facing third seat with seat belts. So, including the front and middle, I have a total capacity of 8 passengers. 8 seat belts, all legal. Loving it. Have a spoiler. It's functional. Functional spoiler. Bet you can't guess how, though. Nope, you're wrong. This spoiler is used in lieu of a rear wiper, which this car is not equipped with, as you can see. What it does is, at speeds above, say, 35 miles an hour, the air that passes underneath it is forced onto the surface of the glass and pushes off any rainwater that might be on it. And if it happens to rain while you're already driving, it prevents any rainwater from reaching the glass in the first place. Nifty. Nifty, nifty. I'm sure you can see, needs a little bit of a bath. George has been laid up off and on for probably going on 2 years. I've owned the car for almost 4 years and haven't even driven it for that long. So, needs a bath. Yeah, so the Legos. So, nobody had done the LX9 3.5 liter engine swap into this car before. So, I had an uphill battle figuring out what I needed to do to put this thing in here. Now, like I said earlier, physically speaking, the engine block and the heads and everything like that are physically identical to the stock engine. One of the reasons I went with the 3100 SFI upper intake, which this particular one came off of a 2001 Grand Prix, is for compatibility purposes. The LX9 upper intake lacks several vacuum ports that are required for my car. One of them is this one right here, which is for the 4T60E transmission. It goes down there to the vacuum modulator. This transmission is old school. It is an electronic transmission, but the shifting is controlled by vacuum. If you don't have that hooked up, it won't shift. Second one is over here. This nipple is for the air conditioning, the interior fans. It goes back there, and it's hooked up to the blend doors and whatnot. So if I didn't have that, then the air would only ever blow out of the vents on the top of the dashboard. And the third one would be this one for the manifold absolute pressure sensor, MAP sensor. The LX9 intake has different provision for its own MAP sensor. It does have the brake booster hose though, no problem there. So there's that. And then since I was using a newer intake style, I had to go to the newer EGR style. The stock engine, the mounting provision for the EGR valve was horizontal, and as you can see, this is vertical. So I had to get a vertical style EGR valve. This one came from a 2002 Grand Am, along as did the EGR stovepipe. The wiring did not have to be modified though. Stock wiring clipped right into the top of that sensor, the valve. Going back to the throttle body, it is, I believe it's from a Grand Am as well, maybe an Alero. It's the 56mm throttle body, with the linkage from a 1997 Lumina, as are the throttle cables, the throttle and cruise control cables. For the throttle cable, I had to massage the firewall a bit. The opening was square for my stock cable, and the mounting grommet clip, what have you, for the Lumina cable was round. So I literally had to force a round peg into a square hole. But it works just fine, clipped onto the pedal like stock. The other cable, the cruise control cable, which goes right here, as you can see, is a little bit janky. Again, it was a round peg into a square hole. I'm trying to get it like that. Yeah, it's kind of hard to focus on it. Let's see if I can focus. There we go. Yeah, the mounting for the stock cruise cable into the cruise module is square. As you can see, it is round on the Lumina cable. So I just basically hooked up the little ribbon that's inside there to the metal cable that's inside, and it's just floating there. Cruise still works. It works just fine. Oh man, now I'm out of focus. Focus. There we go. That's a little bit better. Alright. Yeah, I mean, some Legos. You know, not to mention there's the wheels, which are obviously not stock. These are from, the wheels themselves are from a 1997 Malibu, and the center caps are from a 98 LeSabre. Well, yeah. So, just so everybody knows, you can do an LX9 swap on an A-body. There it is. It runs just fine. I'll prove it. There it is. It's running. Runs really well, actually. There's just a couple of bugs that I'm still trying to work out, but they're nothing majorly detrimental. I really wanted this to be sleeper status, which is the other reason why I'm using the Grand Prix intake and that sticker on the valve cover. I believe the valve cover came off of an 02 Malibu that I got out of a junkyard. So I'm using, for sleeper purposes, I am using this Grand Prix intake manifold. I'm using my stock air cleaner and hose with, like I said, that silicone junction there. And I hooked up the stock Century exhaust to it from the manifolds all the way back. That's all I did. I took the manifolds, the exhaust manifolds and crossover off my dead engine and bolted them right onto the LX9. And they bolted on, no problem. I'm also using the stock Century starter. I'm sure you heard it. It sounds just like it's 25 years old, and that's exactly what I wanted. Using the stock Century's ignition module and coils, and, you know, spark plug wires. Stop that. The PCV valve, fuel pressure regulator. I mean, map sensor is stock for the Century. I'm using the Century's alternator and power steering pump. I mean, it's everything bolted on just like stock. So, the other Lego is I'm also using the Century's thermostat neck right there. And I had to, in addition to that, I had to grab this, which I guess is a heater bypass. It's routed differently on the end bodies, like the Malibu that this engine came from. Instead of going over this way and back to the heater core, which is logical, it has a hose going this way, all the way around here, and joining up with the hose there, the metal hose there coming out of the lower intake manifold where the thermostat is. And since I'm using the Century thermostat neck and the Malibu's metal hose going to the heater core there's nowhere for the throttle body heater. It's bypassed, don't need it. We're in Las Vegas, it doesn't get cold. Everything's fine. I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it. It is choked a bit by using the LG8 intake and the Century's stock exhaust. It's probably not quite making all the power it should. I'm probably down 10 or 15 horsepower from stock configuration for an LX9, but it was good enough to pick up 3/4 of a second in the quarter mile. So not too shabby there. Yeah. So that's pretty much that. And I mean, you can't even hardly hear the exhaust. It sounds exactly like stock, which it is because it's a stock exhaust. I do plan on getting a Magnaflow dual tip muffler designed for a Camaro pretty soon, and bolting that on, and then maybe eventually getting proper exhaust built from the manifolds back. Everyone I've talked to about the exhaust says if you're not running power adders like supercharging or turbocharging, or not making huge power, you just got a stock engine, the stock manifolds are fine. Worry about everything after the manifolds. So I don't know, eventually take it to an exhaust shop and have something built from the manifold back with the F-body dual tip muffler. But for now it works, and that's what I wanted. It's still getting pretty much stock fuel economy, 18, 19 miles per gallon in the city, 27 on the highway, which ain't bad for something with 181,000 miles. You know, that ain't bad at all. Oh, and as you can see, the check engine light is on. And it is for two reasons. One of which is a problem with the EVAP system, which is a federal versus California problem. This is a California car, but the computer I have installed was programmed for a federal car, So it's searching for an evap component that isn't there, because California gonna California, the evap components are different for California cars than for federal cars. The other issue is the computer is convinced that the engine is running lean. And I've done everything mechanically that I can to try and correct that. I'm probably just gonna have to, reprogram the computer, add some more fuel in. Yeah, that's pretty much that. Thank you for watching for 16 minutes. I really appreciate it, listening to my boring ass drivel. And have a good day, Internet. Love you.